What happens if somebody hacks Iran's iCloud account?
Greenfield. Linda Thomas Greenfield is her name. And she liked it.
Why? Now, real quick, and I know I don't have time for all this stuff, but let's see. Why would all of a sudden U.S. envoy to UN Greenfield. Yeah, here we go. Linda Thomas Greenfield. Why would Rudy Giuliani have a problem all of a sudden with Linda Thomas Greenfield? What could it possibly be that bugs Rudy about... Oh, United States Ambassador to the United Nations. That's weird. Rudy, what?
She wanted to tell the Human Rights Council, which is made up of these violators of the human rights. She says to them...
Why are we laughing about human rights violations, I guess? Or the irony, I suppose.
The original sin of slavery weave white supremacy into our founding documents.
Right? Yeah, we've been reconciling with it ever since. It isn't the fabric of the document, it isn't the essence of the document, but it's in there. And we have to extract it over time. Ask the British about the Kenyan slave trade. They felt, in many ways, the same way.
That we are an imperfect union.
Oh my God. She said imperfect in front of the Chinese? The Chinese don't even have a word for imperfect. Why is he mad? Like, he was pissed at imperfect.
We must approach issues of equity and justice.
Why are equity and justice giving you gas?
At the global scale.
At the global scale. Yes, equity and justice at the global scale.
With humility. Because...
With humility.
We are sinners. This is,
Because we are sinners? Aren't you Catholic? Don't you recognize that all are sinners? Isn't everybody sin?
She probably got this, she probably plagiarized this from Obama's apology tour.
There was no apology tour.
I think I remember him saying something like this.
Do you?
Oh, we're terrible, we're awful. We're just as bad as you are. We're just as bad as you are, China, so therefore...
I don't think that's what you said. It's fascinating that that's what you hear, though. I think we're all learning a valuable lesson. Well, value. I mean, we are listening to the voice of Rudy Giuliani, so I don't know how much value you can take from it. But we certainly are getting a window into how this asshole sees the world.
Or if we tell you that you shouldn't be killing 3-4 million Uyghurs in China, yeah, you shouldn't do that.
What? Sorry, 3-4 million what? Uyghurs? Yipes.
That's not nice. Shouldn't do it. And if you yell and scream at Anthony Blinken and he puts his eyes down, I know he didn't. It was good he didn't cry. It looked like he was, but
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
He puts his head down and he walks out with his tail between his legs. We understand. I mean, of course, we did pretty much the same. We did pretty much the same things, right? Right? Wrong.
Oh.
I don't think I have to do the rest of this, which is to...
I agree. I think you can just call it a day. I mean, you're only 10 minutes into this bullshit show, and already we're all tired of your weird, you're doing an apology tour of your own.
Prove to you what liars they are. To prove to you...
What? She said we're an imperfect nation. Aren't we?
That what they did is reprehensible as an American. To attack my country for being mostly an immoral country, to attack the country that has brought more freedom, more liberty, more human rights to the world than any country in the history of the world, to attack my country who has gone to other countries to liberate them.
Yeah, that's the good part of the country. That's the part we want to accentuate and work on and appreciate while fixing our shit. You can do both. As a matter of fact, the country that brings that to every country then and tries to raise up people and brings liberty needs to work on liberty at home at all times. Otherwise, assholes like you and your buddy will make a situation where you're doing a papers, please law in Arizona, and Mexicans have to be afraid, to even visit the country because they're going to be scooped up, put in a van, and dropped off in the middle of a cartel town because they left their wallet at the house.
And unlike the Greeks and the Romans and the Mongols and the
Mongols?
Ottoman Empire.
Oh, I'm sorry. You brought up the Ottoman Empire? Why'd you bring up the Ottoman Empire? Why in the world would he bring up the Ottoman Empire all of a sudden? Why is it? Let's see. What could possibly... Why in the world would he bring up the Ottoman Empire all of a sudden? Why would Rudy bring up the Ottoman Empire? Why would you do that, Rudy? What is it about that does it for you? Yeah?
The British Empire, who did the same thing and took land, property, and wealth. What did we take? We freed...
Well, your buddy said we should take the oil in Iraq. Honest to God. I'm just going to end up chasing holes like this entire goddamn show. Hold on. Let's see. We'll find it. Trump, we should take the oil. I should probably be able to... like this. Here, hold on. Here we go. Sorry, we're great because we don't take anything? Rudy, we're great because we don't take anything. So anybody who suggests, so we're a great and not evil country because we do what we do and we don't take anything. Okay? That's the standard Rudy Giuliani just set. Am I wrong? This is the, okay, hold on. Let's back up for a second, asshole. Let's do this. Look at that. Yeah.
You brought up Iraq.
Oh, hold on. Here we go.
China. So therefore, if we tell you that you shouldn't be killing 3-4 million China, so therefore, to prove to you that what they did is reprehensible as an American, to attack my country for being mostly an immoral country, to attack the country that has brought more freedom, more liberty, more human rights
By
to
the way,
the world.
That's a recreation of the 3 knocks at his door when they exercised the search warrant.
Any country in the history of the world.
Uh-huh.
To attack my country who has gone to other countries to liberate them.
True.
And unlike the Greeks and the Romans
and the Romans
and the Mongols and the Ottoman Empire
and the British
and the British Empire.
Sure. They what?
Who did the same thing and took land, property, and wealth.
Oh my God. Well, that's a good thing. That's what makes our country amazing, right? That's what it is. Thanks, Rudy. That's the difference between us and them. That's what makes us amazing. That's important.
And something you said that could affect American troops in recent days. You said we should have kept the oil, but okay, maybe we'll have another chance. What did you mean?
Sorry? You what now? I'm sorry. What?
Recent days. You said we should have kept the oil, but okay, maybe we'll have another chance. What did you mean by that?
Well,
yeah. Tell us what you mean, because Rudy Giuliani is under the impression that the thing that makes us better than other countries is that we go in and help, but we don't. We don't take shit.
We should have kept the oil when we got out. And it's very interesting. Had we taken the oil, you wouldn't have ISIS.
So remember when Trump used to say that Obama is the founder of ISIS? Obama started ISIS? Remember he says that all the time, and all of us are going, what the shit is this guy talking about? What he's talking about is that in his estimation, not taking the oil was the foundation, and so Obama's mistake was not looting the country.
We should have kept the oil when we got out. And it's very interesting. Had we taken the oil, you wouldn't have ISIS. Because they fuel themselves with the oil. That's where they
No pun intended.
got the money.
So you believe we can go in and take the oil?
We should have taken the oil. You wouldn't have ISIS if we took the oil.
Okay, So just to be real clear, Rudy, you what was it that makes us? Oh God, that's a horrible picture.
Countries. We freed France, country, China. So therefore, if we to prove to you that what they did is reprehensible as an American, to attack my country for being mostly an immoral country.
First of all, fuck you, buddy. Everyone's. And say America. Because that's one of the problems I have with both him and Trump is they keep saying our country or my country, but they never name drop America, except when he uses it in Make America Great Again. They separate it, they bifurcate it out. Like, that's the bumper sticker. But when I say our country, what I really mean is, Germany and Italy circa 1940.
To attack the country that has brought more freedom, more liberty, more human rights.
Sir, we have a warrant for all your electronic devices?
To the world than any country in the history of the world. To attack my country who has gone to other countries to liberate them. And unlike the Greeks and the Romans and the Mongols and the
Ottoman Empire.
And
the British Empire.
And the British Empire.
Yeah, that's right. And they went in,
who did the same thing and
they
took land, property, and wealth.
Horrible that they would do that. Even suggesting that is fucking gross.
What did we take?
Well, according to your former boss, we should have taken the oil.
We freed very rich countries. We freed
them of their wealth?
France. We freed Italy.
Yeah, they weren't rich at the time. They had been strafe-bombed.
We freed Germany. We
fought Germany.
Freed all of Western Europe. And we have...
Well, we had some help, and we were, we're part of we had allies, and they had us, and we did a great job.
Many.
But we didn't take the Czech Republic, say.
Interrupted human lives buried in the soil of those countries, and Colin Powell said it best, a patriotic American.
Yeah, who voted for Obama, actually.
And all we asked for is not land, not wealth, not preference. All we asked for was a piece of ground. Now, that's a great country.
All we asked was a piece of ground? We got paid in dirt?
And if you want to tear our country down with some narrative exaggerating our wrongdoing, of which there was wrongdoing, there's certainly more.
God damn, dude. Do you not understand recognizing your foibles and shortcomings? Christ.
Then explain.
The panic in this. Can you imagine? Imagine your ego being so, tenuous. Imagine being, this afraid that anybody who's... Good Lord, was it? And by the way, the Democrats are the party of the KKK. Well, the Dixiecrats were, and then they joined the Republicans. Jim Crow and segregation. You are just their new slaves. That's adorable, Frank. And by the way, if you're looking for people who support socialism or communism here, you're at the wrong show. But I appreciate your cut and paste. And I haven't thanked the trolls in a while. We've got a few in here because I guess, Rudy's check full of rubles passed, so they can come in and mess with me. I just want to thank the trolls for boosting our numbers again. I know I've been kind of hit and miss with the timing of the show, so it's really great that they've actually, still been around to help us boost our numbers. Great.
The transformation we made, which should be celebrated as an example for countries like China.
Well, it is. That's why you say, we dealt with our shit. If you don't come clean about what you're doing with the Uyghurs or other groups of people, or the damage the one-child policy is, those who do not remember history are doomed to repeat it. We're remembering our history so we don't repeat it. You might think about doing the same, would be the theory.
And Russia, instead of idiots putting us in the same position as them. There is no moral equivalent between the United States of America, China, and Russia.
Right, and that's why we can admit our faults and deal with any kind of intrinsic issues that we have and not have to worry about it. And China and Russia wouldn't even talk about it. I mean, I understand you're dumb. I understand that you're right now, I may be arguing with someone with a frog's brain, and that might be the issue.
And North Korea, and Iran.
Well, then why was your dude so buddy with North Korea?
And to sit in that conference like Blinken did and to be scolded by a murderer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Scolded by a murderer? What are you supposed to do? Have a secret meeting with him and give him the underhand grip on every handshake the way Trump did with Putin?
Immediately takes the United States and puts it back in 1 minute, exactly where Obama had us, following, not leading.
What are you talking about? We were incredibly respected the world over, and we recovered stronger than almost any country after the 2008 crash caused by the Bush administration.
Apologizing and not being proud of ourselves.
Well, you can be proud of yourself and apologize. Being honest about your mistakes and your shortcomings is actually something to be proud of. If you have a complete psychological profile, if you don't have giant gaps in your psyche keeping you in sort of an emotional retardation your entire life.
Because they are not proud of America.
Sure they are. Why would you even try for the office if you weren't proud of the country? If you didn't think you could live up to it, why it would? I mean, I guess technically where he's going with this, they just want to go there and wreck it.
They've been doing it for too long in too many places for me to think this is a fiction. They
A what? I'm sorry. Did you just catch yourself in the middle of something?
just go around spewing hatred for my country too much.
Too much. I like a little bit, but any more than that, it's a little too spicy. Gives me some gas.
For me not to believe that this is a tactic.
It's not. It's a tactic. It's a tactic. It might be. It's another apology tour.
It's a tactic so they can bring about the substantial
sustaining sustainment.
Revolutionary changes in our government to make it the government they want.
Uh-oh. You mean one that is democratic and implies equal justice to every citizen? Huh?
So,
yeah, by the way, you seem really calm after the raid. I'm just saying. I mean, I think you should get raided more often.
how do we stand by the courage of our conviction?
I don't know. I don't know. Thank you, Harbor Seal.
How do we let this not happen to us? Let's first...
By the way, can I just say for the record that, again, this asshole is one of the people who would make fun of people who are doing clapbacks, going, it's not right if you do something racist, that kind of shit. They always hate that stuff, and he's doing the exact same thing.
First, remember, this critical racial theory is not a thing of today.
No, it's not. It's a thing of tomorrow and yesteryear.
This goes back directly to Marxism.
Really? You're just going to give the white supremacy symbol, the OK sign, right back to that?
Directly.
By the way, I don't believe this is a white supremacy sign. It was a Reddit joke that grew, and white supremacists like to look at it, but I'm sorry, I'm too big of a fan of Beverly Hills Cop to give the OK symbol to white supremacists. Sorry, I don't cede physical gestures. I mean, they can keep the Heil Hitler, but all the rest of them are ours.
Originally, the Marxist left.
The Marxist left from the, late 1800s, 1700s?
Built its political program on the theory of class conflict.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Proletariat versus bourgeoisie.
That was the core of Marxism. It gets quite complicated, but if you
Yeah, no, it does.
keep your eye on the ball,
Yeah.
class conflict, you'll see how it is a
Did he say class convict?
similar dynamic that can bring about the same result. These were industrial societies.
Okay, so we had an edit there so that he could get back to his Wikipedia pages that his son had printed out for him.
So you had the workers, many, right? They would be
Right, sure. Bet, yeah, absolutely. In the pre-industrial age, why not?
beginning to go through the Industrial Revolution. And you had people who were...
So this was a economic theory that was created before any form of automation, any form of assembly line. Right. Tell us. He's good.
The managers, higher managers in particular, and of
Yeah, the vice presidents in charge of sales and marketing.
course the owners. Those were the capitalists.
Yeah, owners, managers, and workers. Gotcha. Remember Marx's big chapter about managers?
And the capitalists were, under their theory, oppressing the workers.
Well, that's because at the time, the capitalists at that time were landowners only, for the most part, and it was a resource-based economy, meaning that they either lived on the oil that was being mined, or the coal in that case, or the coke that they made from that, or it was farmers. So if you owned the land, you could do that. Now, if somebody can dream up an app, they can make it themselves, or if they, Jeff Bezos started his business as an online bookstore. So capitalism isn't the same thing as it was during Marx's time. In Marx's time, you were talking about theocrats, monarchs. There was no functioning democracy that was competing with the rest of the world. It was just fledgling.
And on that basis, on that dynamic, on that fight,
that fight
was the whole dynamic of how socialism and communism would emerge, because eventually the bourgeoisie, who were the capitalists, would be overthrown by the people. And the people would take control of the government. It would be owned by the people originally. All property would be owned by the people, no private property, and it would be shared equally. Of course, some minor exceptions had to be made to that in order to make decisions on who's going to work that day in the factory, how much output.
Yeah, we know it didn't work, asshole. It was based on a time before we all had personal computers. The fuck are you on about? Seriously. This is what I'm talking about. All of us are on planet Earth, and the Marxist and the fear the Marxist crowd are all on Moonbase asshole. Just like, oh my God, we must be. It's got a Marxism is the only way. And then other people are like, the Marxists are coming. The Marxists are coming. And the rest of us are like, what are you on about?
Are we going to have?
I don't know. I'm going to be late at this point. I know it.
Are we going to make sure that people that
I got to be out of here by 5:30. Just let you know.
are sick,
my time, East Coast time,
don't take advantage of that. Somebody has to be at the
I love story time.
top
Rudy.
of all this to.
And then they were these people and the two groups, and there was a guy fighting, and then somebody came in with a stick, and then he was boop, and I didn't know where, and then I rolled over, and this happened. All right.
Relate to all the other governments
Be very careful, Rudy. You don't make a hand gesture that's worse than the OK sign.
that might be seeking to end this form of government. So right away, a hierarchy develops. Some communists are more equal than other communists.
So basically, you don't have to fear it, because the substructure grew into exactly what China is, which is more laissez-faire capitalist, technically speaking, than we are.
Some socialists are more equal than other socialists because, like everyone else, they have to be run. They can't run themselves. Certainly their businesses.
Yeah, that's what the business, Communism, Inc.
Immediately it becomes completely bastardized by that.
Oh, so capitalism wins out no matter what, even when they fully put it in place. So what the fuck are you afraid of?
Because Marx, who was not only evil, but as foolish and as unrealistic as any liberal is.
What are you talking about? Liberalism isn't Marxism, you dick.
Never thought of that. Just like they never think of how they're going to pay for things.
Yeah, we do. Your complaint about Biden's thing, the putting the tax break from 2017 halfway back to where it was, is how you pay for the plant. Like, we think about that shit. You do realize Democrats pass bills, right?
Let's give everybody free tuition.
That's what we do with high school. We're just adding 2 years of community college.
And let's bankrupt everybody else.
No. How? Where's the bankrupt everybody else shit coming from?
Yeah. Let's give all the illegal immigrants health care.
We're not giving them health care. We're checking them for COVID and giving them a shot. So that if they do go back home, they're not catching it, spreading it, bringing it back, giving it to somebody else who might try to come over. We're protecting ourselves. It's self-interest.
Maybe a few more will come, like 100 million. But, we'll pay for that. We'll figure it out.
By the way, can I just, I know I'm going to run out of time on this, but let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to find it because I was looking for the actual kids in custody figures unaccompanied minors, something like that. I can't find this. Yeah, so let's see if I have these numbers. HHS custody 23 days. There's so we at one point, let me see if I have the March 2021. Okay, so we only have the March figures on here. We are at this point in March, there were somewhere in the order of 5,600 some odd kids in Border Patrol custody. And there were 18,000 coming through a day of just unaccompanied minors, right? On the western border, on the southwestern border of the United States. And it was taking somewhere in the order of 126 hours on average to process them through. And in some cases, some kids were in custody for almost 10 days before they were either moved through HHS or returned to their home country or placed back with their parents, and then they were all deported. There was a process in this, but it was taking days to do it. Right now, there's I think somewhere in the order of 900 kids in current custody, and everyone on a regular rotating basis as they process people through. And there are, I think it's 23 hours on average it takes to process them. They got 72 hours to do it. They're now doing it in 23 hours. We also know that there were reports that Trump favorable HHS and DHS and Homeland Security people and Border Patrol people were slow walking the process intentionally to make it harder because they thought Biden was going to just let kids into the country. So they were gumming up the works, stretching that 3 or 4 days into 10. So the number has gone down a lot. If you'll notice, when's the last time you heard a big border crisis story? About 3 weeks ago, because they started working on it. The natural rise that came with the time of year has also gone down as they've been processing it. They figured out a system. They've got a system in place, and it's happening. You're not hearing that story anymore. Rudy's still freaking out about it, but you're not hearing any of that shit. So.
And then what happens? Their countries and others go into.
Who are you looking at?
Go into bankruptcy.
Why are you watching over there? Are they telling you to wind up, or they're telling you to go to commercial, aren't they?
So
now would be a good time to take a break.
What do we do to? What do we do to?
What do we do to? What do we do to
combat this? Well,
yeah, it's a decrease in kids at 82 to 84%, and they are processing people in less than 24 hours.
The first thing I think we have to do is we have to fight back against the destruction of the teaching of history that has occurred under our nose without our major objection for 30 years, and now aggressively so with this 1619 program that the New York Times has put together. Which
okay, I don't have time to go through his whole diatribe today because I have to run off. But I will. Let me give a little note on this. One of the reasons why the 1619 project came about, and why there's been a rise in an honest conversation about slavery in history classes that seems to the Rudy Giulianis of the world to be an egregious attack on the moral history of America and an overreach, an overcompensation about the storyline. I'll tell you why. Because in dealing with southern states and teaching about the Civil War, There was a political fight that was done in the last 30 years about, well, we can teach about the Civil War and talk about slavery, but let's not go too far into it because we don't want to shame the southern states, and they're still sensitive about it. I mean, they just put up a statue of Robert E. Lee about 15 years ago, and so they're a little emotional about it. This is in the, mid-60s, mid-70s, around then, when they're trying to work out, when every time they re-up the history books, they would talk about it. They would talk about, slavery was the impetus for it, but there was also an element of states' rights, and they were back and forth, and this is how many people died, and America fought over this, and that was the story, and then we move on. We don't talk about it too much. We'll just pretend it wasn't that big a deal, because the abolitionists, the people who were against it, wanted to teach the story of how awful slavery is, how it was actually a proud moment in American history that we fought it so hard, and that we sacrificed so many lives doing that, fighting it, right? Which is a good thing. I think the fact that America had a civil war within its works about slavery is a good sign of our recognition of the evils of slavery. But because they wanted to water that message down so as not to offend the southern states, it became this kind of like, we talk about the Civil War like we talk about the War of 1812. We talk about the Kennedy assassination and Sic Semper Tyrannis as if it was unrelated in many ways to the Civil War. They became antiseptic because nobody wanted to offend the South because they were on the losing side and the pro-slavery side, and it was a touchy issue. So when you're making textbooks all these years, they've all kind of like, well, I mean, it was there, but right? The British at one point owned the world. No, they did not. They owned big chunks of the Western world and parts of Africa and India, but they didn't own the world. The Mongols owned larger sections. At one point, Genghis Khan, I mean, his troops killed 1 million people in a day. Like, I mean, come on. The whole world is full of people with history. Don't, while we're busy anthropomorphizing animals, can we not look at human beings, our fellow human beings, as animals? Like, because we look at Native Americans like they're deer, like they're like antelopes. Like, they're just kind of these doe-eyed things that didn't have agency and competency and tribal wars and shit back and forth. We act like they had no history before we got here, which in and of itself is sort of a tacitly white supremacist thing. Like, it's part of what comes out if you talk about the guilt of people talking about white settlers coming to the Americas and them moving across the West and quote unquote wiping out the Indians as they went. Well, the conversation about it, because we're dealing honestly with that in our conversations a lot of times, makes the Native American tribes look like they were just one big mush of people, like there weren't different tribes, like they didn't war with each other, that the Sioux and the Pawnee and the Cheyenne and the Apache and everybody didn't have their own tribal identities, their own internal fights. We know so little about that in a way by the way, making them more innocent to recognize the wrongs that we created. So in the process of talking about our own wrongs, we create an artificial, like, overarching innocence of the people we encountered here, and don't recognize the entire history going on there. And it's very complex, and there's a lot going on. And in the balancing act of doing that, in the balancing act of finally talking in an honest way about slavery, the reason that we kind of had this whitewashed, pardon the pun, version of events around the Civil War taught in schools for a very long time, that kind of made it, right up there. There's the Declaration of Independence and then the Civil War, and it was, right? It was, they're basically on the same level. Like the Revolutionary War and the Civil War were the same kind of thing. And they're not. They're very distinct, and there were a lot of personalities and human lives intertwined and all that, right and wrong, good and bad, and the mixture of that. And in teaching about the Civil War, there was a big move to go, all right, we want to talk about this honestly, but we don't want to shit on the Southern schools so that they don't teach history. They don't accept the textbooks, or they rewrite it, or we have two different versions of history. So it became homogenized and softened. Well, now, in a modern media environment, we're all mature adults for the most part. We can deal with it. Thank you so much for the warning. We can deal with the depth of that and understand our part in it, but also recognize it, right? And to the Rudy Giulianis of the world, that normal compensation to deal with the overcompensation in the other way because that's what happened. We were teaching about the Civil War, and we bent it towards the right wing's direction because they needed to have a little ball cradling, or they got upset because we were shitting on the Daughters of the Confederacy and their hero Robert E. Lee. If we just kind of talk about, well, the Civil War was bad and slavery was bad and we ended that and that was that, it makes them, you don't have to dig in to family histories and people and all that stuff, and it makes it, everybody can just move on. Let's just, okay, fine, let's talk about math, right? Now that we're compensating and dealing with that, and recognize that this is the freak out that they were trying to deal with when they were creating the education system that led up to the point where they whitewashed the whole thing, where they softened the impact of the Civil War. And the interesting thing was the softening of the impact of teaching the Civil War softened the importance of the abolitionist movement. So a lot of, what would effectively Rudy would refer to as lefties or left-wing or liberal or progressive people don't recognize the value and importance of the abolitionist movement. They just go, white people did this and slavery was bad, and they were all kind of this. They have a rudimentary view that's compensatory to the rudimentary view that Rudy has. I mean, it's fascinating to watch these people panic. So that's why I love you guys, and I got to go to rehearsal, but I want to remind you guys that we do not fear complexity here. What we love here, and what the viewers of this regular stream, I think, seek as a group to understand, is to not form our opinions with crayons and hammers. That we can absorb the depth and reality of a circumstance, inform our own ethics and principles out of it, not vilify anybody who lived and died before we ever met them, but deal with the intrinsic sins or grace of people who lived and died before us in a way that informs our own behavior, because that's its only worth. History's only worth is to inform what you should do and what you shouldn't do going forward in your own life. If you panic about how it's perceived, then you don't have a guide stone in yourself. So that, that in and of itself is why the Rudy Giulianis of the world are having the freak out that they're having, is that, this pendulum to try and soften the blow for either side over time eventually creates, they're walking on wiggly earth and they can't stand. They have no foundation. If you have a strong foundation, you can look at the history of America at its genuine sins and know that its good absolutely outweighs it. And still work to make that part better. It's that 80-20 rule. If 80% of your time is spent doing, 20% good things, and 20% of your time is spent doing 80% bad things, then your goal should be to reverse those things over time, and then slowly but surely eliminate that 20% so that you're only doing that 80% activity all the time. That's now your new 100%. And even then, when you have a new 100% made of that initial 80% of good things that you're doing, 20% of that is going to be less than what you could be doing. And the goal in life is to always take the part you're doing right, eliminate the part you're doing wrong, increase the part you're doing right more and more. All right, I got to go. You guys are awesome. Thanks for sticking around. I am so enjoying the Rudy raids. We will have more information on this, I have no doubt. And to all the trolls and Rudy Giuliani and all this, that whole crowd, I am a proud Democrat. I am a proud liberal. Fuck Karl Marx. Fuck Rudy Giuliani. Fuck Donald Trump. And I can recognize the sins of my country, and my recognition of them and my desire in my life to make a recompense for them or heal those wounds is the very thing that makes my country great. And if you're too much of a child to understand that, then just have fun fighting a warrant. God damn people, like these people. I love you guys. All right, I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. Thank you guys so much. See you later. Bye.